Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your cybersecurity series. My name is Vlad, and I'm here to help you engage in cybersecurity and discover more about this amazing field of expertise. If you are new to cybersecurity, you need to understand that this is rather a recent field or domain, mainly because in the 80s and in the 90s, the engineers they were busy building the backbone of internet and the entire infrastructure that you use almost transparently today. So they were building the devices, they were building the systems, the protocols, all the communication interfaces, and security only became a concern at the end of the 90s or beginning of the years 2000. Before that, the priority was making sure that everything was operational and working together. So, cybersecurity in itself only has a lifespan of 25 to 30 years approximately. But in those 30 years, there have been groundbreaking events, almost foundational events, which have completely changed the perception of cybersecurity. And one of them, and I think this is something that all the professionals would agree on, one of them is Stuxnet. And Stuxnet is the name of a computer virus and also, more generally, an attack campaign against the Iran's nuclear program. And it was really groundbreaking in the sense that cybersecurity was this time used first as a weapon, but second, as a weapon to also target critical national infrastructures, in this case, nuclear installations. So we are going to start because Stuxnet is a very sophisticated attack campaign, so I cannot cover that in a single video. And today we will really focus on the backstory and all the circumstances that have led to the events. And in the next video, we will talk more about the Cyberattack. So today we have here a picture of the Iranian president in the year 2008, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who was visiting one of the Iranian centrifuge facilities, so uranium enriching facilities. So before we jump into the cybersecurity, we need to do a bit of chemistry. So you might know that there are what we call isotopes. It's not too complex. It's the simple idea that a single element, like for example hydrogen, on Earth and in the universe, it can exist under different forms. So the hydrogen that everybody knows and learns in school is made of a single proton and a single electron. But actually, hydrogen can also exist, and it's what we call deuterium or tritium in different forms because they have additional neutrons. So deuterium has an additional neutron and tritium has two of them. But it's the same element. It's still hydrogen. It still has equivalent electric properties. But of course, and that's what we will see, the fact that there are additional neutrons change some elements. The idea also, and that's quite important for the rest of the lecture today, is that the more neutrons, of course, the heavier the element is going to be. And if we look at uranium 235, so this is one of the uranium isotopes. Basically, the uranium, this is the one that we are using in the nuclear fission. So we use that to produce energy within the nuclear reactors. But of course, if you reproduce this reaction chain, you can have the plot of the movie Oppenheimer, and basically you can get a nuclear bomb. So the idea is that uranium 235, this number, the 235, comes from the sum of the protons and the neutrons within uranium. And what happens is that if you send a high-speed neutron, you can break the uranium into several other elements. And in this case, you are going to obtain barium and krypton. I will not go into detail of those two elements, but the idea is that you can break the shell, you can break the core of the uranium, and doing so, it's going to release a huge energy. And that's exactly the process that the researchers want to achieve and want, of course, to control to make sure that it's not going to engage in a chain reaction like a nuclear bomb. But basically, it's uranium 235. The only problem with that is that on Earth, uranium 235 only exists in a very thin minority. It's less than 1% of the supply of uranium in general. There are two other common isotopes of uranium. So what we call U-234, which is even more rare. And then there is uranium 238, which actually is made of 92 protons, so the same as the others, but slightly more neutrons. So this element is heavier and it's almost 100% of the uranium reserves. As you can see, it's 99.27% of the entire pack. So having said that, you need to understand that uranium is a mineral. So we are going to extract in mines, uranium mines, we are going to extract and collect some mineral. However, how do we distinguish between the uranium 235 that we want to exploit and use from the uranium 238 that we don't have really a use for? For some chemist specialists, they will tell you that, of course, this element can be used as well in different reaction chain, but it's slightly more complicated, and we are not going to go into that into this video. Our focus is really uranium 235. So the idea to extract the uranium 235 is that first we are going to transform it into a gas. And if you look at centrifuge, for example, canisters, so it's basically a cylinder. It's what we have seen in the very first picture I show you today. So these are the centrifuge canisters. They are a few meters high, and in width, in diameter, we are talking about 20 centimeters approximately, sometimes slightly more. But basically, in those canisters, we are going to fill them with uranium gas, what we call uranium hexafluoride, but that's just one tiny precision. And basically, as you can see on the graph on the left, we are going to push this supply. So we are going to send our gas in the canister, and then it's going to rotate at extremely high speed. And doing so, we are going to push the heavier elements. So basically, we are going to push uranium 238, which is heavier because it has 3 additional neutrons. They are going to be pushed to the side. And the more we continue spinning and spinning and spinning, the more we are going to split the gas in between uranium 238, which is pushed to the outside, and uranium 235, which is going to stay rather in the middle of the canister. And from there, we can have 2 pumps. So we are going to pump out the uranium 235, and we are going to extract, we are going to pump out the uranium 238, which we don't need, by pumping on the sides of the canisters. And right in the middle, we are going to find more uranium 235. The problem with that is that it's not perfect in the sense that it's still a gas. So what you are going to do, even if you spin and continue spinning, you are not going to perfectly separate uranium 235 from uranium 238 because the difference in weight in between those two elements is less than 1%. So the thing is that if you take as an input a gas, a uranium gas, which is made of 1% uranium 235, at the end, at best, you are going to get a slightly more enriched gas, meaning that instead of having 1%, you are going to have like 1.5% of uranium 235. On the right side is just a more complex version of this centrifuge. The idea is that you can also use temperature gradients to extract more, but it's the same idea. It's the canister, and it's spinning at the bottom to separate the elements. And so the idea, as I was saying, is that you cannot do it only once. And those centrifuge canisters, they are actually organized in series. And here on the left, I have one photo from US facilities in Ohio. And basically, as you can see, there are many canisters in series. And the output of one canister is actually fed to the next. So if in the first canister you have like 1% uranium 235, in the second one you are going to extract 1.5% and 2% and 2.5, etc., etc. And you continue doing that until you have sufficiently enriched your uranium. And on the right side, we see again the president from Iran in 2008, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who was visiting one of the sites. So it's called Natanz. That's the name of the city and the facility. So when do you stop centrifuging? That's the key question, because at the beginning, as I said, in natural uranium, we only have 0.7% of uranium 235. If you enrich it slightly and slightly, you get what we call reactor grade uranium, meaning that the percentage of uranium 235 is approximately 3.6%. But if you keep enriching and enriching, and you have to understand that this is really the same process. So the more you do it, the more you're going to enrich it. At the very end, if you manage to have a percentage of 90% uranium 235, you can basically build weapons such as the nuclear bomb. And that's where the controversy lies. So we are in 2008, 2007 approximately, we are in this area. And when looking at the main sites of the Iran's nuclear program, so this map is dated 2012, what we can see is that they have only a single nuclear power plant. And this one is in Bushehr, so it's at the bottom of Iran, south of Iran. They have mines, of course, so they can mine uranium in Geshein and Sagand. I'm sorry for the pronunciation, but basically they have the mineral already there in Iran. They were also having a second plant under construction, but you can see that they have three research reactors and two uranium enrichment plants. And so the specialists and the diplomats at the time, they were wondering, why do they need to enrich that much of uranium? Because in the end, they only have a single facility, and it's a country that, for its energy, is relying on fuel imported from Russia. Um, so you can wonder if they are really enriching uranium to feed into those civil nuclear plants, or whether they are trying to build something else. And that was exactly the controversy. And most of the countries were kind of, let's say, divided in their opinions, because some believed that Iran was trying to build nuclear bombs or nuclear weapons, and the others were saying, well, it's just Iran reinforcing or studying nuclear reaction and developing its civil energy plants. And you need to keep in mind that we are in 2008, so we are right after the invasion of Iraq by the US and the UK and other countries. And they did invade Iraq on the pretext of mass destruction weapons, which turned out never existed. So having or blaming Iran for something that nobody was clearly able to demonstrate, that was quite hard. So you really had a split in between all the countries, between those who were accusing and blaming Iran, and those who were more conservative and wanted more like precise proof that Iran was going further than just civil use. Having said that, we need to go back a bit to the technical aspects. So those canisters, as I said, they are using the centrifuge force and they spin. But you need to understand that they spin at extremely high velocity. So here we have just a schema showing you the rotation, and from the rotation and the diameter, you can compute the vertical speed. So in this case, the how fast is it spinning exactly? And that's coming from Wikipedia, but basically separating uranium requires that you spin the canister at 1500 revolutions per second. And just to give you a comparison, your washing machine that is standard, that everybody can have, even in the spinning cycle, when it goes really loud, it only spins as fast as 12, sometimes to 25 revolutions per second. So it's extraordinary compared to civil washing machines. And if you have been close to a washing machine during the spinning cycle, you would understand that it creates a lot of vibration. So all of that, of course, needs to be properly handled. Otherwise, as we have seen, the canisters, they are mounted in series. If you have one canister who is going rogue, maybe you are going to disrupt the entire chain. So the angular speed, as we said, 1,500 rotations per second. The diameter of those canisters is approximately 20 centimeters. So we can compute the radius. One rotation, that's 2 pi radians. So if we do the calculation, in the end, we have a linear speed of 942 meters per second, which is almost 3 times as fast as the speed of sound. So that's really to give you some perspective. So you need to understand that it's really a delicate process involving extremely high speed components. And that's really key, because we will see how all of that is being controlled. As you can imagine, there is some IT, so there are some computers and servers to drive and manage all of that. So basically, we have some industrial software, which I'm describing here. That's just a screenshot. So basically, they have those laptops and computers where they have the different configurations and they can play with the different speeds. They can give orders to the machines. Unfortunately, it's a bit more complex than that in the sense that it's not just another application that and you open Windows and you install an application. Those systems, they are industrial systems and they are much more complex. So there are some specialized hardware to really manage and drive and give orders to the centrifuge systems. So in between, you would find what we call Siemens systems, or SCADA systems. Basically, these hardware systems are controlling industrial components like sensors, valves, motors, rotors, etc. So in the end, we have a chain of command from the laptop or the computer of the operator, which is using classic Windows and some Siemens applications. Then the orders are going to those automation systems. Then it's pushed to the interface cards, so input and output cards, and then finally pushed to the canisters. And as you can see here on this graph, a single unit of the S7 Siemens systems can actually drive hundreds of motors and modules. And all of that is actually driven or managed by a control room. And this control room is located within, of course, the facilities of the nuclear enrichment plant. And the last trick is that this entire facility at the time was offline. So it was what we call air gapped, meaning that there is no system, no Wi Fi, no internet connection in between the control room and the rest of the world. And so there is exactly the challenge. And that's what we will discover in the next video. How can you, from a hacking perspective, how can you enter those systems that are completely offline, and how can you disrupt the functioning or the uranium enrichment facilities without creating a complete disaster? And so that will really give you the context of this entire attack and how sophisticated it had to be in order to work out. But that's all for today. I will leave some more, of course, for the next videos. I hope you enjoyed this really background story around Stuxnet to appreciate also the complexity of this uranium enrichment plant. And I will see you in the next video where we will talk more about the cyber attack in specifics. See you next time.